All right, let's talk about business ethics. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ethics? In business, John? Isn't that like finding a unicorn, riding a Loch Ness monster to a sensible tax policy debate? And yes, sometimes it absolutely feels that way. It can seem like the two words business and ethics are natural enemies, like cats and slightly different cats, or me and a well-adjusted sleep schedule. But here's the kicker, they shouldn't be. In fact, they desperately need to be best friends, or at least civil acquaintances who don't actively try to ruin each other's lives, because when they're not, things tend to go spectacularly, hilariously, and often tragically wrong. You see, the world of commerce, big shiny corporations and all that jazz, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's not just about profit margins and shareholder value, though try telling that to some CEOs who seem to worship at the altar of the almighty dollar. These businesses, these massive entities, they affect real people. They impact your job, your savings, the air you breathe, and sometimes even the questionable quality of the microwave burrito you had for lunch. So when these companies decide to play fast and loose with the rules, or indeed with basic human decency, the fallout can be enormous, like a toddler discovering the joy of gravity with a full plate of spaghetti. The relevance of ethics in business isn't just some fluffy, feel-good concept dreamt up by philosophy professors in tweed jackets. Oh no, it's the very bedrock upon which sustainable, trustworthy, and frankly non-disastrous businesses are built. Think of it like the foundation of a very tall, very expensive skyscraper. If that foundation is made of dodgy concrete and wishful thinking, well, you're going to have a bad time. And probably a very public and messy collapse. And nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to be standing underneath that when it happens, especially if you've invested your pension in said skyscraper. So why should we care? We should care because unethical business practices can lead to financial ruin for millions, environmental damage that lasts for generations, and a catastrophic loss of trust in the systems that are supposed to support our society. It's about more than just avoiding fines. It's about creating a business world where people aren't constantly getting screwed over. And tonight, we're going to dive into some of the most spectacular ways businesses have managed to get it wrong, and maybe, just maybe, figure out how they could theoretically get it right. Now, let's talk about Martha Stewart. Yes, Martha Stewart, the queen of domestic perfection, the woman who could probably fold a fitted sheet into a perfect origami swan while simultaneously baking a souffle that would make angels weep. Back in the early 2000s, Martha found herself in a bit of a pickle, and it wasn't a particularly well-brined artisanal one. This was a legal pickle, a stock trading pickle, specifically involving a company called Enron Systems. It turns out making a perfectly arranged cheese board doesn't automatically make you an expert in navigating complex financial regulations, which is a lesson many have learned the hard way. The core of the issue was something called insider trading. Fancy term, simple concept. Trading stocks based on information that isn't available to the public. Imagine you know a horse race is fixed because you overheard the jockey whispering to the horse. If you then bet your life savings on that horse, that's basically insider trading, but with fewer oats and more potential jail time. Martha sold her Enron shares just one day before some bad news about the company's cancer drug was publicly announced, causing the stock price to plummet. Suspicious timing? The investigators certainly thought so, and they weren't just admiring her perfectly coordinated courtroom attire. The scandal wasn't about a multi-billion-dollar corporation collapsing overnight. It was smaller, more personal, but it was a potent reminder that ethics apply to individuals within the business world, even very famous ones who can make a delightful potpourri. Martha Stewart wasn't ultimately convicted of insider trading itself, but for obstructing justice and lying to investigators about the sale. It's often the cover-up, not just the initial act that really gets you. It goes to show that trying to sweep things under the rug, even if that rug is impeccably hand-woven, rarely ends well. The whole affair tarnished her image and resulted in jail time. So, what's the takeaway from Martha's messy ordeal? Well, for one, it highlighted how easily personal ethics and professional conduct can collide, especially when significant sums of money are involved. It also showed that even seemingly minor infractions, or the attempts to hide them, can have severe consequences for one's reputation and freedom. It served as a stark warning that the rules apply to everyone, no matter how expertly you can craft a seasonal centerpiece. And it reminded us that transparency and honesty, even when difficult, are usually the less painful paths in the long run. All right, if Martha Stewart was a cautionary tale about personal stock dealings, Enron was the full-blown Hollywood disaster movie of corporate scandals. This wasn't just a crack in the foundation. This was the entire building imploding in slow motion, taking thousands of jobs and billions of dollars with it. Enron, once the seventh largest company in America, a titan of the energy sector, basically vanished into thin air in 2001. And how did this corporate behemoth achieve such a spectacular vanishing act? Through a dazzling and frankly terrifying display of accounting fraud. It was less innovative energy solutions and more innovative ways to hide debt. Enron executives, who at the time were lauded as geniuses, the smartest guys in the room, were using incredibly complex and shady accounting practices. They created these things called special purpose entities, which sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie, to hide massive amounts of debt and inflate their earnings. It was like stuffing all your bills under the sofa cushions and then telling everyone you're a millionaire because your living room looks tidy. For a while, it worked. The stock price soared, analysts cheered, and the executives got very, very rich. It was a party, a very exclusive, very deceitful party. The problem with houses of cards, or in this case, houses of falsified financial statements, is that they are incredibly fragile. A slight breeze of scrutiny, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. When journalists and analysts started to dig a little deeper into Enron's too-good-to-be-true numbers, the elaborate web of deceit began to unravel. Whistleblower Sharon Watkins famously warned CEO Ken Lay that the company could implode in a wave of accounting scandals. She wasn't wrong. The company filed for bankruptcy, employees lost their jobs and pensions, and investors lost billions. It was a brutal lesson in what happens when greed and a complete disregard for ethics run amok. The Enron scandal was a watershed moment. It exposed the colossal failures in corporate governance, the auditors who were supposed to be watchdogs but acted more like lapdogs, and the sheer arrogance of executives who believed they were untouchable. It led to new laws like the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, designed to make companies more accountable and transparent. But more than that, Enron became a byword for corporate corruption, a chilling example of how quickly a celebrated giant can fall when its foundations are rotten with dishonesty. It's a story that should be mandatory reading for anyone thinking of fudging the numbers even a little bit. Just when you thought the corporate scandal well might be running dry after Enron, along came WorldCom in 2002 to say, "Hold my fraudulently capitalized expense." WorldCom, at the time one of the largest telecommunications companies in the United States, orchestrated one of the biggest accounting frauds in history. We're talking billions, with a B, billions of dollars just misrepresented. It's like claiming your beat-up old car is a brand new Ferrari by just, writing Ferrari on it with a Sharpie and hoping no one notices the engine sputtering. It was bold, it was audacious, and it was incredibly illegal. The main trick up WorldCom's sleeve was improperly accounting for its operating expenses. Instead of correctly reporting these day-to-day costs, which would have shown the company was struggling, they capitalized them. In simple terms, they pretended these regular expenses were long-term investments, making their financial health look far, far rosier than it actually was. This little accounting sleight of hand inflated their reported assets and net income by staggering amounts. CEO Bernie Ebbers, a folksy former milkman turned telecom mogul, presided over this financial charade, though he later claimed ignorance, which is a bit like a chef claiming he had no idea how the secret ingredient arsenic got into the soup. The house of creatively accounted cards eventually collapsed, as these things always do. Internal auditors, the unsung heroes in many of these stories, finally uncovered the massive fraud. When the truth came out, it was a shockwave. WorldCom was forced to admit it had overstated its assets by around $11 billion. The company filed for what was then the largest bankruptcy in US history, surpassing even Enron. Thousands of people lost their jobs, investors were wiped out, and the telecom industry was shaken to its core. It was another brutal demonstration of corporate greed leading to widespread devastation. The WorldCom fiasco, hot on the heels of Enron, further fueled public outrage and underscored the urgent need for stronger corporate governance and ethical oversight. It showed that Enron wasn't just a one-off, an anomaly, but part of a pattern of corporate malfeasance. Bernie Ebbers was eventually convicted of fraud and conspiracy and sentenced to 25 years in prison, proving that not even a folksy demeanor can save you from the consequences of massive financial deception. The sheer scale of the WorldCom fraud served as yet another alarm bell, screaming for businesses to get their ethical houses in order or face dire consequences. Section 5, Business Ethics 101. More than just not stealing office pens. So, we've seen some spectacular flameouts, Martha Stewart, Enron, WorldCom, a veritable hall of shame. But what exactly this business ethics thing they all seem to forget existed? Is it just a dusty old textbook topic? Is it simply about not embezzling millions? Or not committing obvious crimes? Well, yes, not doing those things is a good start, a very good start. Don't steal pens, don't cook the books, basic stuff. But true business ethics goes much deeper than just staying on the right side of the law, which, let's be honest, is a pretty low bar sometimes. Business ethics, at its core, is about the moral principles and values that guide the behavior and decisions of individuals and organizations in the world of commerce. It's about how a company treats its employees fairly, with respect and offering decent working conditions. It's about how it deals with its customers, honestly, transparently, not selling them snake oil disguised as a revolutionary new product. It's about its impact on the environment and the wider community. Are they polluting the local river, or are they trying to be responsible corporate citizens? These are the questions that business ethics tries to answer. Think of it this way: the law tells you what you do or what you do to avoid getting fined or thrown in jail. Ethics, on the other hand, tells you what you do, even when no one is looking, or even when doing the wrong thing might be more profitable in the short term. It's about having an internal moral compass that guides decisions, not just a fear of external punishment. It involves considering the impact of your actions on all stakeholders, not just shareholders, but also employees, customers, suppliers, and the community at large. It's about playing fair, even if you could technically get away with playing dirty. And why is this so crucial? Well, apart from the obvious not destroying lives and economies angle we saw with Enron and WorldCom, a strong ethical foundation builds trust. Trust is the currency of good business. Customers trust you to deliver what you promise. Employees trust you to treat them well. Investors trust you to manage their money responsibly. When that trust is broken, it's incredibly hard to get back. It's like trying to unring a bell or unsee your uncle doing karaoke. Some things are just permanent. So ethics isn't just a nice to have. It's fundamental to long-term success and stability. Section 6. Corporate governance. The adults supposedly in charge of the candy store. Now, if business ethics is the moral compass, then corporate governance is supposed to be that system that keeps the ship sailing in the right direction, or at least stops the captain from deliberately steering it into an iceberg because he owns stock in iceberg salvage companies. Corporate governance refers to the rules, practices, and processes by which a company is directed and controlled. It's essentially the framework of accountability. Think of it as the adult supervision for big companies, the ones who are supposed to make sure everyone is behaving and not, for example, inventing fictional revenue streams. This framework involves a whole cast of characters. You've got the board of directors, who are elected by shareholders and are meant to oversee management and act in the company's best interests. They're like the school governors, supposedly keeping an eye on the headmaster. Then you have auditors, both internal and external, whose job it is to check the company's financial statements and make sure they're accurate and fair. They're the financial hall monitors. And of course there are the shareholders themselves, the owners, who theoretically have a say in how things are run, though sometimes it feels like their main role is to receive glossy annual reports. Good corporate governance is absolutely critical for upholding business ethics. When governance structures are weak, or when the people within those structures are corrupt or asleep at the wheel, that's when you get your Enrons and your WorldComs. If the board is too chummy with the CEO, they might not ask tough questions. If auditors are more interested in keeping a lucrative consulting contract than in finding fraud, then the numbers can be easily manipulated. It's a system, and if parts of that system fail, the whole thing can go sideways very, very quickly, often taking public trust down with it. The impact of strong corporate governance is profound. It promotes transparency, ensuring that stakeholders have a clear view of what the company is doing. It enforces accountability, making sure that someone is responsible when things go wrong. It helps to align the interests of management with those of shareholders and other stakeholders. Ultimately, good governance is designed to prevent the kind of abuses of power and financial shenanigans that lead to scandals. It's about making sure the candy store isn't looted by the very people hired to manage it, which sadly happens more often than you'd think. Section 7. Building an ethical company. It's harder than assembling IKEA furniture, but possible. So how does a company actually go about being ethical? It's not like you can just buy an ethical company's starter kit from Amazon, though knowing Amazon, they're probably working on it. Building and maintaining an ethical culture is a complex, ongoing process. It requires more than just a vaguely inspiring mission statement tacked up in the break room next to the coffee machine. It needs real commitment from the very top all the way down to the intern who's still trying to figure out how that coffee machine works. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and definitely not a let's just hope for the best kind of stroll. First and foremost, leadership has to walk the talk. If the CEO and senior executives are seen to be cutting corners, prioritizing profit above all else, or treating ethical concerns as annoying obstacles, then that message will trickle down faster than free donuts disappear on a Monday morning. They need to champion ethical behavior, communicate its importance constantly, and demonstrate it in their own actions. A strong, clear code of ethics or conduct is also essential. This document should lay out the company's values and expectations for behavior in various situations, from conflicts of interest to data privacy to anti-bribery measures. But having a code of conduct isn't enough if it just gathers dust on a shelf. Employees need regular training on what these ethical standards mean in practice for their specific roles. They need to understand how to identify ethical dilemmas and what the proper channels are for reporting concerns. This brings us to another crucial element, whistleblower protection. Employees must feel safe and encouraged to speak up if they see wrongdoing without fear of retaliation. A culture where people are scared to report problems is a culture ripe for scandal. It's like having a smoke detector with no batteries, utterly useless when you actually need it. Furthermore, companies need to integrate ethical considerations into their decision-making processes at all levels. This means asking not just is it legal or is it profitable, but also is it right. They should also have systems in place to monitor compliance and investigate potential breaches of ethics. This might involve ethics officers, compliance departments, and regular audits. It's about creating a system where ethical behavior is expected, supported, and rewarded, and unethical behavior is swiftly addressed. It's a continuous effort, like trying to keep your houseplants alive, requiring constant attention and care. Section 8. The good guys finish first sometimes. Benefits of being ethical. Now, after all this talk of scandals and complex systems, you might be thinking, John, this all sounds like a lot of hard work. Is it even worth it? Don't nice guys finish last, especially in the cutthroat world of business? And that's a fair question. It can certainly seem like companies that bend the rules get ahead, at least for a while. But here's the thing. While unethical behavior might offer short-term gains, it's a terrible long-term strategy. Being ethical and having strong corporate governance actually comes with some pretty significant advantages. It's not just about avoiding a PR nightmare or a hefty fine. For starters, ethical companies tend to attract and retain better talent. People want to work for organizations they respect, that align with their own values, and where they feel they're being treated fairly. A reputation for ethical conduct can be a major draw for skilled employees, and it can lead to higher morale, greater loyalty, and increased productivity. Who wants to work for a company that feels like the corporate equivalent of the Death Star? Not many. Unless the dental plan is exceptionally good, and even then it's a tough sell. Beyond employees, ethical behavior builds stronger relationships with customers and suppliers. Customers are increasingly savvy and care about the ethics of the companies they buy from. A good reputation can lead to increased customer loyalty and a willingness to pay a premium for products or services from a trusted brand. Similarly, suppliers are more likely to want to do business with companies that are fair and reliable. Think about it. Would you rather lend your favorite, most expensive power tool to a trustworthy friend or that shady neighbor who borrows things that are never seen again? The choice is pretty clear. And let's not forget investors. Strong corporate governance and a commitment to ethics can significantly boost investor confidence. Investors are looking for sustainable, long-term value, not a company that's going to implode due to scandal. Companies known for their integrity are often seen as less risky investments. They also tend to have better access to capital and may even enjoy a lower cost of capital. So, while the path of ethics might require more effort initially, the long-term benefits, enhanced reputation, stronger stakeholder relationships, and greater financial stability are well worth it. It's like choosing the healthy salad over the triple bacon cheeseburger. Your future self will thank you. Section 9, Conclusion Ethics. The business superfood for long-term health and trust. So there you have it, a whirlwind tour through the sometimes murky, often alarming but incredibly important world of business ethics and corporate scandals. We've seen how individuals like Martha Stewart can get tangled in webs of their own making. We've seen corporate giants like Enron and WorldCom crumble under the weight of their own deceit, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. These aren't just abstract stories. They are cautionary tales with real-world consequences, affecting millions of lives and shaking faith in the systems we rely on. It's a stark reminder that what happens in the boardroom doesn't always stay in the boardroom. The lesson from all these debacles is pretty clear: ethics in business isn't optional. It's not a luxury item you can add if the budget allows. It's fundamental. It's the core ingredient for building a business that can last, a business that people can trust, and a business that doesn't end up as a punchline in a late-night comedy monologue, though admittedly they do provide excellent material. Ignoring ethics is like building a magnificent sandcastle right at the water's edge as the tide is coming in. It might look impressive for a moment, but its demise is inevitable and messy. Establishing and adhering to strong ethical standards, supported by robust corporate governance, isn't just about avoiding jail time or billion-dollar fines, though those are pretty good incentives. It's about creating a culture of integrity, fairness, and responsibility. It's about fostering trust with employees, customers, investors, and the wider community. This trust is incredibly valuable and remarkably fragile. Once broken, it's a monumental task to rebuild, like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube while wearing oven mitts. It's just not going to happen easily, if at all. Ultimately, ethics is about sustainability in the truest sense of the word. Not just environmental sustainability, though that's part of it, but the ability of a business to endure and thrive over the long term. Companies that prioritize ethical conduct are building on a foundation of rock, not sand. They are investing in their reputation, their relationships, and their resilience. So, while the pursuit of profit is, of course, a key driver of business, it cannot be the only driver, because a business without ethics is, quite frankly, a business waiting to become the next Enron. And nobody, absolutely nobody, wants that, except maybe future documentary filmmakers.